forth announcing all that. Bloody hell, tell them who we are.
Presenting His Majesty Henry VIII and Her Highness Anne Boleyn.
Oh.
Huzzah!
Good day.
I don't believe you.
That was half-hearted. Let us try it again. Now, and this time answer as if it were your own idea. Good day. Ah, that is the more merry. For good Queen Anne and I, my newly taken lady wife, have we come to enjoy this most festive occasion. But all is not well in the kingdom, for there is perfidy afoot.
No.
Yes.
No.
Your Majesty, where sits the culprit?
There he is.
That man! Quick, God, seize him!
I must be certain.
Remove his visor. Uh-huh. Is it he?
I'm still not certain. Yes!
It's him! It's him!
That is the one.
Kill him!
Ed! Open his head!
A sword! A big sword, he has a thick neck.
Now, bend slightly forward. Duck thy head.
How are you called, sir? What does your mother call you?
Chicken.
Before she got to know you, what did she call you?
That is quite a paltry little name.
Well, Your Majesty, your wit is clever today. What is your name? Glenn.
Macmillan, he's a
A
Scot.
Scot.
Scott!
Oh!
No wonder he kissed her. No
Oh,
break.
very well, Glenn. Your head slightly forward. Wait. Then, you have pleased Her Majesty, and you have pleased them by pleasing her. You have pleased the court. Her eye has fallen upon you, and she would have you elevated to knighthood. But first we must determine whether you have performed some noble deed or virtuous act.
He just did. He kissed my hand.
Well, that's noble, but it's not necessarily virtuous. Then, did you clean up your room? Did you carry out the garbage? Very well. Glenn. I, Henry, 8th King of the Britons to bear that name, have learned that thou art a noble fellow, and have rid the realm of a hideous, health-threatening mess by cleaning up your room. And you have rid the realm of hideous piles of stinking offal by carrying out the garbage. And thereby you have done deeds both noble and virtuous. And having pleased the Queen in this regard, so say I, Henry, by my hand and this sword, do I elevate thee into the ancient and honourable order of St. Michael and St. George. And thus do I dub thee once, and twice, and thrice. So say I, arise, Sir Glenn. People's all, Sir Glenn, your reward.
Well, jamming is a highly esoteric art form. Unless you have more intelligence than the average mortal, you haven't got a prayer of ever jamming, ever. It's hopeless. No, obviously I'm kidding. I started playing guitar right around 2 years ago, and the way that I learned to play all the instruments that I play was by jamming with friends. And just wherever you find musicians, if you've got someone who gets together, someone sooner or later is going to say, have you ever heard this tune? And start picking it out a little bit. And then, oh yeah, well, start playing a little bit. And then sooner or later, someone else is going to show up, and someone else is going to show up. And before you know it, you've got a million people playing lots of tunes in various different keys.
And you still bring them back to the fact that you are that character. And they'll try what they can to break you down, but they love you if you don't.
It is
one of the most exciting forms of theater I've ever had any relationship with. You can, the audience is all around you, and the audience, if you will, changes every 20 feet as you walk down the path. You have a new audience and a new relationship, and always new things to do. That's why we really like Renaissance fairs. It's a particular and special kind of theater that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, really, except here in the United States.
It's great sport. I don't think it's made for everyone because people don't like to be exposed to the heat and the cold and whatnot. But we like being outside. We've always liked being outside. We don't mind it at all.
I had been playing the harp and studying with a harp teacher when I came back to this country for 6 or 7 months when the people at this Renaissance Festival approached the Harp Society and asked if they wanted harp music out here and asked if they could get some people out here to play the harp. And there was a little meeting of some of the members of the Harp Society, and David Cullum, who worked out here, came and introduced us to the idea of the Renaissance Festival and asked if we'd be interested and that we would be paid and et cetera, et cetera. And had to find Renaissance music to play. That's what got us into it, basically.
Well, actually, that's kind of an interesting story. This was my first experience in the state of Texas, and I got quite a bizarre welcome to the state of Texas. A friend of mine had signed up for the drive-away car. She was going to Dallas, and I dropped her off there and came to the Renaissance Fair. It was on a Sunday afternoon, and I slipped on my old Renaissance Fair costume and put a drum under my arm and sort of sneaked in the back way. And as I walked in, there were some friends of mine getting ready to perform, and they asked me to, they were very surprised to see me, but they asked me to sit in with them. And on the last number, I played the Mid-Eastern drum, the Dunback, and there was a belly dance act up next, so they asked me to sit in with them, and I was able to stay the rest of the fair and be part of their group. And this drive-away car, having arrived a day early, having 2 drivers, wasn't due back until the next day in Houston. So I stayed one more night. I was out, and I came back to the fair with a friend of mine and pulled into the parking lot. At that time, there were tents scattered all up and down the outside parking lot, and the fair was a lot smaller. The area we're in right now did not exist. It was just an old field behind a fence. Nobody ever walked back here. And that night, I pulled into the wrong area. I was looking around for my campsite. I didn't know my way around very well. And the car stalled. And where it stalled, there was a rock painted with a little sign that said, "Private drive, no parking." Well, now I thought this must belong to the neighbors of the fair. And I looked up, and the headlights of a pickup truck with their brights on were coming across the parking field at about 40 miles an hour, head on towards my car. And I said to myself that it was probably the irate owner of the driveway who had just had it up to here with people parking in his driveway. And at the last minute, the truck pulled aside, and this fellow got out of the truck and started walking over to the car. And I quickly began to explain that I really wasn't parking in his space, and that I was sorry, but I was just trying to get back to my campsite, and the car had stalled, and I was halfway turned around when I saw his lights coming across the field. And as I was trying to explain all this rapidly to him, he came over and grabbed the door of my car and tried to break it off. He was leaning into it, just pounding it back and forth. Well, it wouldn't shut. Then he started pummeling myself and my friend, just pounding us and kicking us with his cowboy boots and screaming at us, screaming obscenities. And we thought he might be kind of upset. And my friend got a split lip, and my friend was trying to pull me into the car while this crazy cowboy was trying to pull me out of the car. And he had a friend in his pickup truck who was standing behind him, very ineffectually saying, "I think you all better leave. He's really upset. He's really drunk. I think you all better get out of here." I couldn't get my car started between being pulled one way and the other by these 2 people. I finally got the vehicle going, but was unable to get it in to reverse to continue my turn because my friend was leaning on the gear shift lever trying to keep me in the car. So I went off in first gear across all these ditches and parking things, and I went up the road, and my friend was pointing out something off to the left. He said, "Go up there, go up to the trailers up there." Well, I didn't know where the trailers were. He said, "Go up there and go left." Well, I went up there and went left, and he said, "No, not here." and I turned the car around and went back up to the road, and by that time the fellow in his pickup truck had caught up to us, and he rammed us from behind. Well, this fellow had never seen me before in his life, and I'd certainly never seen him before in my life. I had no idea why he was so upset. And we finally got to a trailer, and here was where I got a sort of an introduction into the role of women in traditional Texas society, because this little woman that had grown up here in Magnolia came out of the trailer. She's about 4'11". She sized up the situation and figured out that this guy had no business being on the fairgrounds, that he wasn't a crafts person and he wasn't an entertainer. And as soon as she figured that out, he was threatening to shoot us. He had a gun in his car and he was going to kill us. And when my friend put his hand up to knock on the door, he said in a very low voice, "If you knock on that door, I'm going to kill you." And we were pretty scared. And when this woman started cussing at him and opened up her mouth, he backed down like a little kitten, got back in his pickup truck, said, "Oh, I didn't mean any harm. I was just going now. I'll see you later." And he took off in his pickup truck, and that was the last we heard of him. And the next day I had to take the drive-away car back to the drive-away agency, and it was much the worse for wear. And the owner was not pleased at all, but the woman who ran the drive-away agency was the aunt of one of the entertainers out here, Isabel Gantz. And she was very sympathetic with me and also very interested in the Renaissance Fair, so she was a good shield between me and the owner. And somehow I had enough good experiences here that year that I wanted to come back the next year. And it was, I think, 1979, the following year, that the whole group came down, and we've been working here as a group ever since. And we've worked with all sorts of people. We've worked with the belly dance acts. We've worked with the people who are over on the maypole right now, over there, Lady Montague's dancers. And we've been up and down the streets of the fair, and this is now our third year working full-time in the King's Feast. We're the house band.